You are listening to Unfuck Your Mind with the real, raw, colorful, authentic, empowering, control profanity loving human Zach Lyotis, soul activator, master key holder, and intergalactic elder. Zach loves to find lessons in adversity to advocate humanity one listener at a time. She also enjoys having fun along the way. Check her out at zachlyotis.com to see what she's up to. But for now, let's pass it off to Zach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. In today's podcast, I have Samantha Nolan Smith. Samantha is the founder and CEO of the School of Visibility. Through its classes, short courses, and programs, the school supports women to speak up and really be seen and heard in the world. Combining her background as a lawyer and public policy advisor with her training in personal and spiritual development, Samantha has developed a unique approach to overcoming visibility barriers, which she shares in the school's popular classes and online programs. Samantha helps women recognize their own worth and feel confident in sharing their unique perspective with the world, meet career goals that they've been too scared to pursue, put themselves forward for visibility opportunities they previously shed away from, and take their success from behind the scenes into the spotlight and become more vocal and visible on their own terms. And I'm going to add there, not only on their own terms, but in their own truth of who they are. Welcome, yes, Samantha, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is so much fun. I'm going to go right to the lawyer thing because you're the second lawyer that has been on this podcast. And she said she left her career as a lawyer, she was a criminal lawyer, and she left because she was burnt out, frustrated, and realized it wasn't the path her soul wanted her to go down. Tell us a little bit about that lawyer instinct that you decided to leave and become a spiritual teacher.
Well, for me, I think it goes back to why I decided to become a lawyer in the first place, which interestingly was all about visibility and speaking up. And it was about when I was in year 5, so I was maybe 9 or 10 years of age. My teacher at the time said to me, "My goodness, you're good at advocating for other people." And he said, "You're going to be a barrister one day." And I said, "What's a barrister?" Because, I was 9 or 10 or something. And he explained to me, and he kind of explained it in a way where he said, where people can't speak for themselves, you speak up for them and you help them when they're in difficult, situations and they need help. And I went, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So from that point forward, whenever anybody, people always say to little kids, "What do you want to do?" And I would always say, "I want to be a lawyer." So I did exactly that. I went to law school, got a law degree, and then I went into corporate law because that's when you're at law school, that's kind of a path that you're funneled into. You get clerkships and so forth. And so I went into corporate law and I got very quickly disabused of my sense of what the law could be about, or I was shown a different part of the law, let's say. Yeah. And I very quickly went, I don't want to do these things. I don't care about helping a company make another million, 100 million, $1 billion. Like, I don't care about any of this. I was working in funds insurance and I was working in all these areas that just had nothing to do with my areas of interest at all. So after working in a couple of firms, I thought, no, this isn't for me. And I could see, I had that sinking feeling every time I walked into the office of, I'm just going to have to get through the day. Like, my body was literally would tighten up and I would feel sick. And I thought, okay, this can't continue. And I then thought, well, what does a lawyer do with her qualifications and her experience? And I had friends who were working in public policy, and a friend said to me, "I heard that you're thinking about leaving. I'm going to India for a few months. I've got this great land management matter with an Aboriginal community in Western New South Wales." I lived in Sydney in Australia at the time. And she said, "Could you take it over for a few months for me while I go to India and travel? And then maybe there'll be, maybe you can stay on." And this was working in the government. And I said, great. It couldn't have been easier for me to, I barely thought about what I wanted to do, and that offer came my way. And so that was my entree into really working with Aboriginal communities, particularly in New South Wales in Australia, but also doing some national work. And I worked there for 10 years.
Wow.
Culture and heritage matters and land rights, and I worked with a very small community in Sydney that was incredibly suffering incredible disadvantage, and we worked on what would we do about that, because there was so much money being poured into the community and nothing was working. And this is where I really started to think about, maybe there's a different way. Maybe this isn't just about resources. Maybe this is about soul. This is about emotional healing. This is about something else other than what government traditionally looks at. Maybe well-being goes well beyond the areas that I had been sort of focused on in my role in government. And so toward the end of that time, I really became convinced that actually so much of the change that I had been looking for and working toward in my career was missing the big piece. And the big piece was that soul connection. It was spirit connection. It was healing of all of the wounds. It was, and in particular for Aboriginal communities in Australia, it was about really a very different style of reconciliation than we talk about here, which is really about reconnection, and reconnection on every level, reconnection to land, reconnection to self, to soul, to spirit, to community. So
that's incredible. That's totally stepping into your genius zone and figuring it out along the way. And this is something Gay Hendricks talks about in his book, The Big Leap, when he says, what are your upper limit problems, right? And you notice that way in advance that you were starting to feel this feeling in your body while you're walking into your office. And it's not like I feel sick from this place, but something else was telling you there's something better for you, Samantha. So let's just sit in this. That was your upper limit problem. You're sitting in it. And then all of a sudden you get a call from a friend. You know, there's always the light at the end of a dark tunnel, as they say. And in that chaos comes magic. And it seems that you would go through your upper limit problems and then all of a sudden magic would show up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think because that happened early in my career, I wasn't resistant to change. I wasn't so invested in, I could actually see, I would watch the partners in the law firms, the two that I worked in, and I would think they're stuck. Like if they wanted to leave now, it would be so difficult for them to leave because they're financially stuck in the sense that they've bought into a lifestyle now. They're reliant on this level of income in order to pay their mortgage and in order to do the things that they want to do. And they've got children at particular schools that are costing this amount of money. I could see all the financial investment that they had in the lifestyle they had built for themselves. And I thought, if they want to leave at this moment and just go off and, I don't know, do something that won't involve the same level of economic prosperity, they won't be able to do it. Yeah. And so I was aware of that in my 20s. Like I was looking at that and thinking, you don't want to be that person. You want to make the move now so that when you are their age, you've already done all the hard work.
Done all that. That's totally ahead of your time. I mean, I say this to people all the time. I've had people say, Zach, when did you have your awakening moment? I always respond, which one? Because I had so many awakening moments and I have a lot more. Like for me, I know my spirit guides always say like, Zach, you're such a late bloomer. And I'm like, well, Kentucky Fried Chicken, that's like a company out here. He didn't get rich till he was 56. So I'm still on a good trajectory to becoming wealthy. Like, you know, Walmart didn't show up until he was 40, 45. I still got a good thing going on. And McDonald's didn't happen until their mid 40s. So I'm on a pretty good path, like following the brilliance out there. But I envy those that are able to recognize it earlier. And my whole big thing, and it's so interesting that we're having this conversation because I've had this conversation with myself the last week. And it was so interesting because a question that I always pose to myself is, what would you have done differently in your life if you didn't listen to all the people that tried to stop you? And I don't take what they said I took everything that they said to me personally, and it felt like it stopped me. What would have I done differently if I just followed my own path? And I always say this to myself, you probably wouldn't have been here right now. You would have been somewhere out there. I could have probably been in Australia or, more South America or something like that. And I always think about that, because now it's like, okay, so now you're not listening to anyone. What are you going to do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And, even though I was really clear from very, very early, I'm going to walk my own path. This life, I'm going to walk my own path. And the big thing I used to say, even in my teens, I'd say, the thing that I is my guiding light is I don't want to get to 70, 80, 90 years of age and turn back and regret that I didn't do something. So I thought, I'll just keep doing things. I'll just keep trying things. And then at least, even if they all go wrong, at least I will have had a fulfilling life. At least I won't regret the not doing. So that was always the path for me. But, I totally resonate with what you're saying about which awakening moment, because, thousands, let's say, in my own life. But for me, what happened then after I'd been, working with Aboriginal communities for a decade, and that was fantastic. I love that work so much. I would have stayed there forever had my being not then directed me in another path, had that not taken me off in another path. And that was really about, I got quite sick at that point. I got sick with chronic fatigue. I had this experience where I was working. I had taken all of those A-type personality traits from corporate law. I'd taken them into public policy, and I'd continued to work and work and work and work and work really hard and work really long hours and really push myself in what I now think of as a very masculine mode of being and doing. Yeah. And I've been training. I've been training to be a yoga teacher in my spare time, in the few hours that I had in the evening or, on the weekends. And I knew that I had developed a level of self-awareness by then, because this was in my mid-30s, and I'd been doing yoga since I was 19. I developed a sufficient level of self-awareness to know that I was having trouble stopping. That I could stop if I, was doing a yoga class, and then at the end of it, I would go into Shavasana, and an hour or 90 minutes in, I could finally stop. But I knew that I couldn't do that just off the bat. I couldn't just go, okay. And I certainly wasn't living in a resting place. I wasn't moving and being in the world from a place of rest. And so I went home one day from work, and I lay on my bed, and I said, and I cried, and I said, I don't know how to stop. I know that I don't know how to stop, and I need you to show me. And that's all I said. And then about a minute later, I thought, oh my God, I've just wished upon myself some kind of terrible illness. So then I went back to the universe. I said, I didn't mean, don't give me a life-threatening illness. I didn't mean that. Let's just be really clear about all the ways I could stop. I've just suddenly flashed through my eyes all the different ways. So be careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly. Oh, yeah, that's very true.
So 3 days later, I found myself could not walk across the road, I was completely laid out with chronic fatigue. I was diagnosed with having, I think you call it mono. We call it glandular fever in Australia. But yeah, so I had the Epstein-Barr virus, and then that led to 4 years of post-viral chronic fatigue.
Wow.
Where initially I could not get out of bed. Like, there were months and months that I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't have light. I couldn't have music. I couldn't read. I couldn't have television. It was literally, in yoga we call it pratyahara. It was sense withdrawal in every sense of the word. And I would just lie in bed and look at a white wall all day and all night. And over that 4-year period, I really learned how to stop. I call it my...
Well, you had no choice.
I had no choice. I fought it. I can't tell you, Zach, how much I fought it. Oh my goodness. I would just try and really be sneaky about like, oh, I've been resting now. I've been asleep now for 16 hours. Surely I can work really, I can really get some stuff done for the next few hours. And I had no sense of modulating that. So I would be completely at rest, and then I would be completely go, go, go. I didn't know how to move from
balance that
rest to restful action.
Yeah.
And that took me such a long time to learn that. And I call that whole period now my apprenticeship in the feminine. That was my deep, many, many dark nights of the soul there. And when I came out the other end of that, I knew this is what I'm here to share with the world in various ways through, supporting women to speak up. All of that's come through in my work.
Yeah.
And combined with that is and sharing how to lead from the feminine, sharing how to speak up and lead from that place. And really that was another major turning point for me. But I think I fought that one so much harder than I fought the move from corporate law to public policy.
And it's so funny that you say careful what you wish for, because I've had people say, oh, I asked spirit to do this for me. And I'm just like, whoa, that's not a very clear, like direct message. Like I would go back, control, cancel, delete that, and just like rebirth a new message, because you're going to end up being flat on your ass for a long time. Or I love when people say, oh yeah, I feel like I need to rest, but I have so much work to do. And I'm always like, oh, if you feel like you need to rest, don't worry. The universe will take care of your resting.
Yeah, it certainly will.
Because it's the funniest thing. I was working one day and I'm typing, and I heard the universe saying to me, go sleep. I think it was between like a whole retrograde like we're going through now, or it was like a really powerful time. And I'm like, let me just finish this off and I'll be good for a couple of days. Okay, let me just repeat that. Let me just finish this off and I'm good for a couple of days. I slept for 3 days straight. 3 days straight. I woke up and my mom even said to me, where did you go? Like you slept for 3 days. And I'm like, I didn't realize what happened to me until I woke up. And I was like, how was it Thursday when I went to bed on Monday? And I don't remember anything between that.
Isn't that incredible?
It's incredible what the universe does for us, but we as a human mind can't comprehend that.
No, well, we don't know the power of our own words. We don't know the power of our own thoughts. When we start to really get a sense of that, I had this experience. I was living in London at the time and in the UK, and I went to bed just regularly one night, and I'd been doing a lot, not really in any kind of regimented way, but just there was a lot of divine feminine stuff coming through constantly, pretty much. And I went to sleep, and then I woke up, and I was in, I think there's a term for it, people listening may know, where you wake up and you're in a state of paralysis. Where it's like, yeah. And so I knew I couldn't move my body, and I wasn't scared of that part, because I knew it wasn't like a physical, I wasn't thinking it was some kind of physical thing I had to get an ambulance or anything like that. I knew it wasn't. But I couldn't move my body. But what was happening was my tongue was involuntarily, I was definitely not trying to do this, was twirling up in the back of my throat up toward my navel cavity. And I thought, oh, I could choke to death on my tongue right now. And that bit was scaring me. But I think that's why I had gone into a state of paralysis, because the body would not let me move. So there was no way that this thing was going to, I couldn't harm myself because I couldn't move. But what happened was when this was happening, I had no idea what was happening, but I've had lots of different, weird and wonderful spiritual careers and all sorts of crazy things happening in my life. So I thought, oh, here we go. Here's another one. But what happened was, in the midst of that experience, I suddenly could see thought moving through the universe is the best way I can describe it. Yeah. And I could see the power of every single thought. And that every thought that came out of our minds had went on a journey and had an impact, and that there was a consequence to every single thought. And I suddenly went, I'm so concerned about thinking now. Because
forget about the tongue I'm about to choke on and the paralysis I'm going through. These thoughts are coming out tenfold. You lose your thought basically like from one to another. It's so fast. I get it. I get it.
And I thought, I realized how I was lacking in discernment about my own mind and about my own, where my thoughts were going, and how much thought rubbish I was putting out into the world. And suddenly I was like, oh, you have to be very, very discerning about where you put your attention and the thought that comes through in your mind. Because lots of people at the moment are watching the Marie Kondo thing on Netflix, or maybe they know the book. It's exactly like that. But in the thought world, the exact same thing. We're just cluttering it with thought mess, as I call it.
Yeah.
So this experience made me realize just how powerful every single thought is, and that we need to be much more acutely aware of that.
You know what I love? How you got that lesson through paralysis, thinking you're going to choke on your tongue and all these thoughts come out. It's so interesting because it's almost, when I go into paralysis, and it happens to me quite frequently, this is something like a weekly event for me. And I always find when I'm in that state of paralysis, I'm like, oh, spirits are in my body and they're just upgrading me. And I have to be just not to have this sense of fear, which I don't have this fear, but something happens which triggers me into being so terrified that I'm going to die. And then I'm like, the spirit has a hold of you. And then I've seen exactly what you're saying with the thoughts coming out of you. And it's like just these letters and words that are coming away from you. And it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then I'll just start saying to myself, you're fully protected. Spirit would never do that to you. You have way too much work to do in the universe. Like, and I just talk to myself. And then all of a sudden my eyes always end up closing. And I could see deeper into what the universe, like spirit, angels, whatever you want to call, but they're trying to show me something. And I'll close my eyes, and then I have no control of opening my eyes because they're in full control of my whole body right now. And I'm like, wow. How do I get that? Which way do I need to go? Man, that must take years. I don't have years. Could we like cut this off somehow and like fast forward to get it faster? And this is one thing I said to Spirit. I said, I know what I want to create, and I know I could create it fast. I said, but the thing is that as things are moving so fast, sometimes it takes so long. So I always say to Spirit, could you not show me the full, like show me the full thing? But like, could we fast forward that? Could we put a 10x on how fast we could go? They're like, I'll work myself to get it. But I feel like it's too long, even though it doesn't feel like it's too long. I feel like it shouldn't be 2 years. It should be like 8 months, And Spirit says to me, well, it's not even about you. It's about what you're trying to bring towards you that has to start forming. And once that starts forming, it will come plowing at you faster than you're able to deal with it. But this is one thing, and I want to talk about visions because you are the school of visibility, right? Mm-hmm. This is about coming and staying empowered and being in your genius zone and being in your divine essence and your divine birthright. And this is what it all came down to when I was having this conversation with Spirit. It's like, you could go out there and do it, but not everyone has that desire and will to push themselves past those boundaries like you did. You come out of depression within 30 days, you start making 5-figure income. Then, within 18 months, you made a 6-figure income. Now you're aiming for a 7-figure income. And I just got out of depression. Yeah. And I always tell people this, like we keep ourselves hostage. And it was so interesting that we're saying this because the school of visibility, I get it. It was so difficult for me to be visible because I didn't want to be vulnerable.
Exactly. That's the key to it all. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be judged, which is we're vulnerable to judgment. We don't want, it's all of the fear around, the fear of being seen and really being seen. And when I talk about being seen, I'm not talking about being seen in a Kardashian kind of being seen way. No. I'm talking about being seen for the truth of yourself.
Yes.
And I think that particularly with women who are women and men, but women I focus on, women who are connected to spirit, who are here following their soul path. Being seen for the truth of that is terrifying for so many. And a lot of the work I do isn't just about, it's terrifying because we've got this overlay of, will people take me seriously? Will people think it's weird or crazy? But it's not just this lifetime we're talking about. It's lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes of diminishment of the feminine, of rejection of intuition, of reason above all else. The legacy, a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is around, the legacy of the Enlightenment period and the Industrial Revolution, and the way that we became much more mechanized as human beings. And we just started to measure everything to the nth degree, and we started to really focus on inputs and outputs and all of this kind of thing. And we stopped working in harmony with nature, and we started controlling nature. All of this, also accompanying all of that, was this rejection of traditional spirituality. It was a rejection of women's wisdom. It was 400 years of witch hunts. It was everything that was cyclical, our wisdom that comes through menstruation, everything all got thrown out the window or got squashed and suppressed over that period of time. So of course, this generation, this time in the 21st century, where all the women, you and me and all of us, are doing this incredible job of bringing all that back into the light. Yes. And that was the reason that I started the School of Visibility was I was in Portland, Oregon in America a few years ago. And I was at a conference there, the World Domination Summit. Chris Guillebeau runs that. It's a great, great event. And the person at the front of the stage said, guiding us through something around, what's the bigger purpose that's going to drive you forward from today forward. Mm-hmm. And I sat there, and Spirit said to me, make the invisible visible. Yeah. And I just burst into tears. I was so emotionally affected by that, because I knew that I had the mission. Like, I was told what I had to do then. Yeah. And I knew that there were so many layers to that, and I wasn't even sure where I was going to start with that. But I thought, I know I can start with women's voices. I know I can start with spiritual women who are hiding because they're afraid to be seen, and they're afraid of being vulnerable. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of not being taken seriously. And deeper than that, they're afraid of being stoned to death, being burned to death, being all the things that we're carrying around in our collective karma around that. And once we can clear all of that, then all of the wisdom that all of these women that you get to speak to through this podcast and so on and so forth, all of our collective wisdom can come forward and really bless the earth with the new way.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because just last summer, 2018, I spent I spent a lot of my time in California. And I didn't understand why people used to say to me, Zach, I want to promote you to people. I'm like, no, don't tell people who I am. My famous line, don't tell people who I am. I was fine with my, being transparent with people I worked with. I was fine with being vulnerable. I told them my weakness. I told them everything. And then that question kept on coming up. Why am I so afraid of people getting to know me? And it was my witchy days when I was put to the stake. I was burnt. I was killed. I had a mob of men and women that I was helping support, empower them, get their voices, leave who they had to in order to find their voice and find their genius. And from that point, when I recognized that part back in the 1800s, that I didn't even exist in this body back then, I was still holding on to that emotional debris that was holding me back in the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Recognize this. We don't recognize this.
Well, we have one of the classes that we have at the School of Visibility is called Reclamation, the Power of Witches. And it's about the karmic imprint and clearing the karmic imprint from exactly that. Because I discovered for myself, I've been running my own business since 2009. And And I realized after a while, it's not growing at the pace that some other people's businesses are growing at. And I'm not sure why. And it took me a long time to realize, oh, it's because you're hiding out. It's because you're terrified of the consequences of the mob. And when I looked back over time, and I did kind of more traditional, first of all, personal development work where I was like, oh, okay, well, there's stuff in this lifetime around. I was bullied as a young girl. And there was a literal mob incident as part of being bullied then, which was the karmic thread of it in this lifetime, the way it manifested in this lifetime. But then I was like, no, I've cleared that. I've done loads and loads of healing, clearing on that. And I knew that was done. I hadn't done the bit around fear of the mob. So I did some work on that. And then I realized there's still more. I used to have this feeling when people would join my email list, I'd have this feeling of complete terror of, who are these people? I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they want from me. I've been inviting them to my list, for heaven's sake. I was terrified.
It's so catch-22-ish, right?
Oh, God. So frustrating. And then when I finally realized, I did some training became a master practitioner in something called Compassion Key. And that is a technique that really goes right back into any karmic imprints that are really still overlaying you in this lifetime. And I did the work finally on being persecuted. And same thing, burned as a witch at the stake, stoned, hung. There were so many times that I was persecuted. It was extraordinary. I mean, it's incredible that I would even have started a business really and put myself out there on any level, given the amount of fear. Yeah. So once I had done that, I thought everybody needs to do this work. Well, not everybody, but the women who resonate with this, we all need this because we all need to be free of this.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm really, I love when people recognize, oh, that's what's going on. This isn't just about let's get a better strategy going or
no.
I'm afraid. It's not, and it's not even just, people, I don't know, teased me when I got up on stage when I was 7 years of age. All of that stuff is also massively important, but there's a legacy of years and years and years of clearing up that we're all here doing at the same time as we're doing the individual clearing work.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I started a school, it's a course called the 6-Figure Lifestyle. Yeah. And when I was coming up with this, I went through a whole year not recognizing that I was being pruned to become this teacher of a 6-figure lifestyle going into a 7-figure mindset. And I said to Spirit, I had 6 months to sit with because they put me in retirement for 6 months. And they said, you're going to sit with this because we're not going to give you clients that you think that you should be serving. We're going to give you clients that you need to serve. And everyone was coming to me with I had to work on their strategy first and foremost, but I looked at their money blocks that they were holding on to and their creativity. So being so much in that masculine energy and not harnessing the creative feminine. And it was so interesting because I didn't think that all this stuff made sense to me until I just got back from Nicaragua. I was working on something. I got back from Nicaragua, and for 2 weeks after that, I just became a creative genius. I just wrote I was so in my zone of genius. I didn't even want to sleep, nothing. Yeah. And then just yesterday I said, something is off. Something feels weird. And I've had a lot of people put dark entities on me. My teacher says to me, Zach, the brighter the light, the more that the darkness wants to attack you. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, yeah, whatever. I don't even pay attention to that. But when you get to pay attention to this, because you can't ignore, there's a yin and a yang, there's a dark and a light, so you go through it. And I realized that something happened to me, but I was fine with that. I dealt with it. I cleared it. But just yesterday, I was doing some more work on myself. And there was a question that got posed to me as I was reading a book. And I sat with it. And the question, if I could remember it, it'll come maybe to the top of my head, brought a picture of my mom forward. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is about abundance and lifetime and all this stuff. Why is she stepping forward? Mm-hmm. And then they told me how she doesn't believe that I could make money. And I was like, okay. So in her conscious mind, she's praying, but in her subconscious mind, she doesn't believe in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, that's interesting. And then from that point on, I just kept on sitting in this mess. It was purely a mess coming out of me. And when you're doing this after a while, you kind of don't even have tears. You're just like, oh, that's what I've been holding on to. So here I was working through this, and all of a sudden it said, but the thing is, from those deep childhood imprints, you don't find yourself worthy enough of achieving financial abundance. And I went, wow. And then I heard, start believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And that all just came from a simple question that I closed my eyes, and it was about abundance and manifesting financial abundance. And all these blocks came to my mind of saying, the reason you might not be able to get to 7 figures as fast as you want to is because you don't believe in yourself and you don't find yourself worthy of it. And I went, I think I just hit gold.
Well, this lineage piece is enormously important. The impact of the mother's belief on the daughter, particularly, and then and so on and so on and so on. One of the things that I work with women on is what I call gendered fears. And it's the limitations that we take on as a gender, as women, that we've been taking on for century after century after century. So when we're talking about, I don't believe that I'm worthy of financial abundance, we're talking about current belief, but we're talking also about mother, grandmother, her mother, her mother, her mother, all of whom were told the same thing. You're not worthy of financial abundance. You cannot hold wealth. We're actually going to take wealth from you if you acquire any wealth. As soon as you marry a man, he will own your wealth. As soon as if there's some other person, if your father dies and there's no male sibling, the money's going to the uncle or the cousin or the whoever else, whoever the male is. So we have generation after generation after generation of women being told you are not worthy of wealth. So when that lineage, that's pretty significant conditioning right there. Huge. So one of the things that I take my students through is at different times is like a gendered clearing. So it's clearing of gendered consciousness. So it may or may not be specific to your circumstances, but it's there somewhere. You're connected to it by virtue of identifying as a woman in this lifetime. Yes. And once you can start to free that as well, I'm really passionate about, because one of my big prayers is to get free as many women on the planet as possible. So I started my journey by freeing myself, but then I became way more, and always have. I mean, from that story from when I was in year 5, I was always wanting to support other people, to be free, to speak up, to advocate. And so because that's the prayer, Spirit kept sending me ways to not just clear individual blocks, but to clear generational blocks, to clear gendered blocks, to clear collective blocks of people. So that's what I've been kind of exploring over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's a fun place to be when you get through generational blocks and you could clear it in sometimes an hour, 15 minutes, just depends how open you are to receiving the healing. It's like, I have one of my clients, she's been with me since the first day I decided to do this work. She goes, when you do this type of work, it feels like I want to go inside, like, hallelujah. Like, it's like the light has, the light shining and the path all of a sudden showed up, because we've cleared generational blocks of money, of love, of disrespect, of, what you should expect from other, like so many things, right? And it's so interesting because now once we look at certain things, I'm like, well, we cleared that, but I think you're holding another layer to something else. Let's investigate on what's going on, because this is one thing I want to say, and I'm sure the School of Visibility, you say this to your students as well, is that we don't clear everything at one time. This is a ladder that you have to climb. And I know, and I think I'm saying this for a reason, because I'm not really saying this coming from spirit. I think people have this misconception that they could come in for a session and their life has already changed for the best, and that nothing else is going to hold them back. And all these things, I don't even know the stories they tell themselves. That doesn't matter to me, but I've had people say, well, I went for one session, and I'm like, okay, what happened after that?
I don't do one-to-one work anymore, but I used to do it for, maybe 6 or 7 years. I did one-to-one work, and people would come to me and they would say, so I've got, I'm having a little bit of problem in my marriage, and I really want to fix my finances, and I think maybe I want to change my career. Could we do all of that in 90 minutes? And I go, no, we can't. And they would say, how long do you think that will take? And in my head, I'm thinking, well, how long is a piece of string? But I would say to them, I cannot tell you. What I can say is that's actually in your hands. And that was as much as I could do. But I knew they were about to step onto a lifelong path of clearing and awakening and clearing and awakening. Yeah. And all I could do was think, well, I'm going to give them whatever I can give them. And hopefully, as a part of that experience, I can support them with some tools that they will use forever. They will use for the rest of this life. But
no, it's
I think, you've no idea what you've just stepped into.
I say that to people because it's so funny. I said, I've been on this path all my life. I saw spirits from the age of 3. I said, but I start working on myself at the age of 22, and I'm 44 now, or 45, however old I am. I said, so your answer to your question, I've been at it for 22 years. How long do you think it's going to take you to figure things out?
Yeah.
But
so we're the same age. I'm 45. And I say, well, I'd say the same thing. I'm like, I had all sorts of random spiritual things happen as a child that I didn't understand, didn't really know what was going on. And then really was, grew up quite in a religious setting in the Catholic Church. And so I was very attracted to, in the sense of I felt very akin to the nuns, and I loved seeing them at mass, and I loved singing with them, the hymns and so forth. And I, for a while, thought, if the Catholic Church had been a different institution, and if it had been in so many ways, there's horrible things happening recently in the Catholic Church, but if they'd been open to women and they'd been open to female priests and things, that would have certainly been a profession that I would have considered going into. Like, that would have been a path I would have considered. But of course, the Catholic Church being as it is today, at 19, I started doing yoga, and that really took me on in many ways, it's the path of spirit, right? But it took me into a more open institution, yoga isn't even an institution, but it took me to a place where I could express spirituality in a way that allowed me to.
Yes.
So I say the same thing. I say, well, I've been kind of at it my whole life, certainly since 19 and onwards. Yeah. And I don't see myself stopping anytime.
You're going to bury me 7 feet under, and I'll still be going at it. Right?
It's just, how expansive do you want to become? How much do you want to open to the universe? How much do you want your heart to open? How much do you want to realize fulfillment and potential in this lifetime? How do you want to serve? How do you want to lead?
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about the School of Visibility. I love the name of it, first and foremost, because once you allow yourself to be visible and knowing who you are, magic happens. And I want to say this because Spirit's laughing at me. They're like, yeah, keep on talking about that. You've been hiding. And it's just like, it's true, because a couple of years ago when I just snapped out of depression, I was doing a card reading on myself, and I heard go on Facebook and do a live. And I was like, absolutely not. And I heard, no, dude. I'm like, yeah, let me just tell everyone I got mama drama issues going on. And let me just tell everyone that I have issues, blah, 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 blah. And I heard, just do it. And I was like, fine. I told you guys I'm going to listen to you. I guess I'm going to listen to you. So I have to go on to listen. Even though I find this the most uncomfortable thing, I'm going to still listen to you. And this is about really, when you're about to want to be visible, you have to go through a lot of those upper belief problems that we're going through, right? And here I was, I pushed live on Facebook, and I got so many emails back that day saying, oh my God, that card reading was for me. I swear you were talking to me. And I'm like, no, it was my own card reading. And I said it at the beginning of the card reading. This isn't a card reading for everyone. It's my card reading, but Spirit wanted me to put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
I got so many emails back to the point. It made me get visible. I started doing Facebook Lives 3 times a week for almost a year, just over a year. And it was like, I just spilt my beans online. Everything. Nothing held me back. I've had people say to me, oh, looky, you're a witch and this. And I was like, yep, I sure am a witch. I'm glad you noticed that, you know? So tell me a little bit the School of Visibility, because, man, there's a lot that you go through just to be visible.
Yeah, there are so many elements to being visible, but what you say is exactly right. It's all upper limit. It's all about exposure. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, this often comes up, this thing of how much do I share of myself? Mm-hmm. How much, and you know, since I started running my business, I've only ever shared what Spirit has asked me to share. Mm-hmm. Like that's my answer, because you can't pre-think this. Like you can't sort of strategize what's the appropriate level of sharing if the important thing is you're in connection with your own body and your own intuitive guidance. And once you have that, then it will tell you where to hold back. Mm-hmm. It will tell you, speak up here, hold back here. Like this, it will, you know, you'll get that. But when you've got blocks, you won't hear that. You won't hear that guidance, because all you'll be thinking about is, what are they thinking of me? Oh my God, look at my hair. Oh, the lighting's really bad. Oh, I didn't say that exactly correctly. Oh, I've tripped over my words there. And the inner critic just is crazy for the amount of criticism that it brings up and judgment that it brings up.
I love that you said that. Do you know when my first Facebook Live, I started like this. It doesn't matter what you say to me. I've already beat myself up. Yes, I have lines on my face. Yes, this. Yes, that. I just want you guys to know that you can tell me I'm ugly. I already went through that path. So keep it to yourself, because at the end of the day, you can't hurt me as much as I could hurt myself.
Yeah. And this is so important to know, because so many women say to me, I'm terrified of the trolls. I'm terrified of the haters. I can't get on Facebook Lives. I can't get on social media because I'm going to get trolled. And this is something that I really want us to have a bit more of a sophisticated conversation about generally as a community, because one, there are haters and there are trolls. They're very different beings. Haters are just people who just are in an angry mood. They're going to argue with you about anything. You can just send them love and let them go on their way. You know, they're just internally having some issues that day, and you're the latest target, you know.
Yeah.
But lots of people, that's actually the fear. The fear is that I'll say something and somebody will question it, and then I will be seen not to know what I'm talking about. Oh, my what I'm putting forward will be invalidated in some way. But ultimately, the thing is, I'll be deemed unworthy. So we always get down to, I'm not worthy. Am I really worthy to share my voice, my opinion with the world?
Yeah.
So that's one group of people. But as you say, the reality is, you've already beaten yourself up about that way more than anybody else will. So, you know, so their stuff is only ever going to mirror what you've already told yourself. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Trolls are a whole other set of people who are very, very different. They work in syndicates. They actually target very particular types of groups of people. So a lot of my stuff comes out and it's #feminist, because I do a lot of work in the feminist sphere. And they love nothing more than going after feminists, because they see feminists as the devil themselves. Like, feminists are the new witches, right? Yeah. So, but when that happens, if you're not in that industry and you're not, you know, hashtagging that kind of stuff, trolls won't even find you. They're not interested in you. They don't come after women's empowerment when it's couched in that way. They come after feminists who are arguing about human rights and and arguing a particular way, and a few other industries, but they're not in every industry. They're not going after every industry. And the thing that I find with them is you treat them the way you treat any bully.
Yeah.
You cut the energy relationship between you, because what they're looking for is to feed off your energy. They're looking to upset you. If they can't upset you, then they go away. They go and find somebody else to upset. If you don't engage with them, they go and try and find somebody else to engage with.
Yeah.
If you laugh at them, they're horrified because they think that they're the one on top. Powerfully, that they think they've got the power. So if you show them, you're not hurting me, I can play your game and I can win. I have a girlfriend who just wrote a book called Troll Hunting. Her name's Ginger Gorman. And so she had a terrible experience of being having trolls come after her at one point. Mm-hmm. And she's a journalist. She spent the next 5 years really researching, what is this troll culture? What is it all about? Who are these people? And she ended up befriending quite a few of the trolls. And these are generally, they're quite specific kind of demographic. They're white men. They're younger in sort of millennial plus. They're not older men generally. They're quite isolated, and all their connections are online. They've often had, this is obviously generalizations, but they've often had a very difficult upbringing where parenting hasn't been very nurturing. They've been sat in front of a computer a lot of the time. They're very, very damaged individuals. And when she reached out to them to talk to them, the response was really interesting. Obviously not in every instance, but in many instances when she reached out human to human and said, I'm trying to understand why you would do this and why you would intimidate people like this and why you frighten people. And of course, she found what everybody finds when you reach out to another human being in that way, that they're just a scared individual who has some very bizarre sense of the world and how the world works, and that everybody's working against them. And what they desperately want of anything that they want to be seen.
Yeah.
They want to be acknowledged. And this is what, through the years of working in the School of Visibility, I've really come to this real sense that it's a basic human desire to be seen and to be heard.
Yes.
And so the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and then bestow to others is the gift of seeing and hearing.
Yes. Yes. So true. And it's so funny that you say that, because when I had to be vulnerable and do these Facebook Lives, I've had a few trolls on there. And I said to them, now that you got my attention, let's put you at the limelight. So what is it that you want here? And they would disappear really quick because they didn't know how to communicate, right?
No.
And when they don't know how to communicate, it's like, oh, they got me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can try, and I've tried many different tactics over the years, and I made the mistake for a while there of thinking that they wanted to have a reasonable, rational discussion about something. Of course they didn't. But then, toward the end of last year, I got hit by a syndicate. And so every time I went onto Instagram, I would feel, first of all, just as I was going on, oh God, here we go. How many trolls today? And I would see them all. And I just thought, I'm not engaging with a single one. And so I would just go through and I would report and then block, report, block, report, block, report, block. So I did this many, many times a day for about 2 weeks. At the end of that time, I must have made it through the syndicate. There must be nobody left in the syndicate, because that was it. They just went away. They just didn't come back to my particular Instagram page. And I thought, well, I was so clean in my intention there, and I was so clean in my energy of just no, 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 no. So I didn't unconsciously invite a relationship, an energetic relationship with any of them. So this gets very subtle, and not everybody can I talk to this about in this way around trolls, but when you start to recognize, oh, I understand the energetic relationship amongst all people, and I understand that some of these relationships we've had for a very, very long time, and in this lifetime I'm getting the opportunity to clean up that relationship, then that's what you can do with, with this syndicate. I thought, who knows who they were from past and how they might have harassed me in the past and so forth, but I'm powerful in this lifetime. I'm way more powerful than I have been in previous lifetimes, because I've built on all of those lifetimes and I've done enormous amount of work in this lifetime. And so I can in this lifetime, I can stand in my power and I can say, no, 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 cut, 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 done. And then that closes that karmic relationship, closed forever, done.
And that's sometimes for those that, I want to talk to those that have those trolls out there, but you get so frustrated with them. I want to say this to you because it's coming down so clear. These people come into your path or on some sort of a path that you're on so that you could recognize a different sense of yourself. So instead of allowing them to take that energy from you, because most likely you're one of those people that give away your power, this is about really harnessing your power and using your words. And that's the whole reason that, trolls or haters all come on this path, is because you're still learning parts of yourself that you haven't recognized yet. And the more that you're able to recognize your power, the more that you recognize how your words can impact individuals, that's when you'll start leaving these people to the side. It's almost they're not going to even bother talking to you or getting in the way of you, because they know that they can't get past you and in making you an angry being of light. Like that's their ultimate goal, is to make you angry. But because you have this self-awareness of the emotional energy that comes with it, you right there are way ahead of the whole game. So for anyone that is experiencing that, really sit back before you make a reactive move on that, and really allow yourself to say, why is this happening to me right now? And what am I to learn about myself? And then you'll start to recognize why this is happening to you, and to clear out your own karmic debris, because once you even clear out your own karmic debris, you're actually clearing out that whole karmic debris between you and the other person. And it could be a multitude of other people that you're clearing along the way as well. So enjoy the process, have fun in the process, and get to know yourself in that process. Sorry, I had to close my eyes when I say that, because I was coming up from a different elevation.
No, I completely, everything. Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah. And this knowing in each moment, am I acting now in response to the troll? Am I acting from a place of power, or am I acting from a place of fear? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when I described with that syndicate last year, the whole time I was just rooted into the ground. I was so powerful and strong about that I could just go, no, 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 and just flick them off. But at other times I have blocked from fear. Like, oh, I don't want to engage with that person, and what was required then was something very different. What was required then was like a Durga energy, like an energy of no, like this.
Yeah.
And I had to speak my voice. I had to express my power that way, and learn through that experience, the power of my own voice. So there's not one sort of one size fits all for this in terms of how you approach it, but there's always the exact same thing that it always is what's the truth right now for me? What's coming through here for me right now and where am I acting from? Am I acting from a place of claiming my power, or am I acting from a place of shrinking and fear and hiding out? Because hiding out never serves you, and it never serves the world.
Yes. And that's one thing. I just finished writing about that. You not standing in your divine essence is holding someone else from standing in theirs, because you could be their leader. You are that light that they need to spark with and ignite with in order to stand in their divine essence. Wow, this conversation has brought back like this whole week of me just talking to myself. This is incredible. Thank you, Samantha, so much for being on the podcast. This has been a great conversation. Anyone that feels aligned to look at the School of Visibility, all of Samantha's socials are going to be in the show notes just below. Take a look at her stuff. There's some incredible things that she's working on there. Become visible. Get out of that closet. I've been in that spiritual closet since I was a kid because I was told it was evil. And the only evil part about it is that I wasn't fully educated about it. So become visible to all women out there. Stand your ground. Speak your power. And just be truly, authentically who you are. And I believe that's what the School of Visibility is. It's about being truly who you are. And in that essence, magical things happen. So thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing your light with us here today. This has been incredible. I love the conversation that we're having here.
Me too. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've got all the spirit tingles going.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beck.
It's about the spirit tingle. That's why sometimes I close my eyes when I'm talking. And I've had people go, "What does she do?" And I can feel where it goes, "They think you're weird." I'm like, I am weird. They already know this because you're talking to me. So I embrace in the weirdo. And that's what it comes down to, is when we allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to be who we truly are, we embrace in all the things that other people may not agree with. So it doesn't really matter, right?
It's all self-acceptance. Once we can accept ourselves, then we can allow ourselves to be visible to everybody in all of our uniqueness, which is how we're supposed to show up in the world anyway.
Amen. I'm going to close on that one because that was such a beautiful ending to this whole podcast. So anyone that's out there listening to this podcast, and there's a lot of people listening to these podcasts, I want you to connect with Samantha, feel aligned, to look at the School of Visibility, see what she's up to up there, become more visible, become more awakened, and become more true in your divine essence. Until we connect again, have a beautiful day. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind. Head over to iTunes and leave your 5-star review and comment to get uprising the charts so we can get this incredible wisdom into more ears worldwide. In the show notes, you'll find all affiliate links to what we've mentioned in the podcast or products Zach loves to use. Until we connect again, unfuck 1% of your thoughts and watch how your life shifts.